Joining us online will be Oleksandr, the military governor of Kharkiv, and we will talk about the aftermath of the shelling of Kharkiv and the operation of critical infrastructure there. And joining us right now is Oleksandr Merezhko, the head of Verkhovna Rada Committee on Foreign Policy and Interparliamentary Cooperation. Mr. Oleksandr, good afternoon. I would like to greet you with the new year and wish everybody that would be the year of victory, because a lot of things depend on all of us. I mean, both on journalists, on this profession, because you spread the truth. You're talking about the things happening in Ukraine, and it's the issue of fight against Russian disinformation, Russian propaganda all around the world and in our country as well. Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. We want to greet you too. I would like to say a couple of words. Yeah, please go on. Dear colleagues, I would like to say a couple of words about the achievements of the parliamentary diplomacy within the last year, and I would like to share our plans just in brief. Last year was extremely tense. It was the year of fight, and the task of parliamentary democracy is to submit all our efforts, the efforts of the parliament, directed at the joint effort, at the victory over the Russian aggressor. We did everything possible, and you know, it was a daily, very difficult work, including our committee and parliament in general, and we have achievements. There's a lot of achievements, actually. First of all, we understand that how the parliament can assist to our joint victory, to a common victory, is the financing of it's the financial support of Ukraine on part of other parliaments of the allied countries, and it's the joint effort, is the cooperation between the parliaments that we were working on very diligently. Ukraine keeps getting more and more support, more and more funding from other parliaments, from our foreign allies, and we will keep working in that direction in this year as well. Among the achievements, I would like to mention that Bundestag, the German parliament, recognized Holodomor as the genocide of the Ukrainian people. I remember I had a meeting with the petition committee in Bundestag. I was trying to convince the German deputies to do so, but eventually we achieved it, and it's extremely important. This year we will continue convincing our colleagues, our parliamentary colleagues, including German ones and French ones, so they recognize Russia's crimes as the genocide of the Ukrainian people, and they recognize Russia as either terrorist state or terroristic regime. We will continue this work this year. Among other achievements, you know that the parliament and our committee, in particular, we are doing the ratification of international agreements, and many agreements were ratified that enforce the defense capabilities of our country. And I'm proud that those agreements were coming through our parliamentary committee, and specifically this is the agreement between us and Turkey to build a Bayraktar construction factory in Ukraine. As to our plans for the future, first of all, we will continue in our committee, we will continue to try to denounce the agreements between Ukraine and the aggressor state, the Russia, and bilateral agreements with Belarus. Is the issue of national security, and we will continue working in this area. We have certain plan of legislative actions in this area, and we will continue reviewing the law on diplomatic service, because that law was created during peacetime, and it does not take into account any aspects related to the martial law. And we will develop the amendments to this law which would optimize and reinforce the activities of the representative offices of Ukraine abroad. We will work on amending the legislation on trans-border cooperation. Besides, our plan of legislative work contemplates the ratification of a number of international agreements, for example, the international adoption legislation, the Convention on the Maritime Employees, and the agreement between United States and Ukraine regarding the persons who are on travel. So we will continue our activities in terms of interparliamentary assemblies, bilateral, multilateral. Last year we enforced the bilateral cooperation between Lithuanian and Ukrainian parliament and the countries of ASEAN. It's a very important issue as well. We will continue spreading, so to say, the regional sphere, expand the regional sphere of our diplomacy, and we will pay more attention to such important regions as the countries of Africa and Latin America. We will reinforce our cooperation with them, the region of Asia Pacific, which is extremely important for the modern world. We have very ambitious plans, and we will continue to work as seriously in this area. Thank you very much, Mr. Oleksandr. The year 2022 or year 2023, what will be the biggest challenges that we are about to face in international arena that we understand what do we understand will be most difficult this year? Yeah, we understand it will be a difficult year. The parliamentary diplomacy is ready for that as well. All our efforts should be submitted to one joint purpose, is the victory. And for this, we need, first of all, the weapons. We need to keep convincing our allied countries such as Germany and France to provide more of modern, up-to-date weapons, tanks, long-range artillery, military aircraft. That should be our top priority, and we will continue doing that. We will continue holding joint meetings with the committees of the foreign countries, our delegations, our friendship teams, interparliamentary committees will take care of this issue. Another issue is the continuation and the increase of the funding of financial provision of financial and economic support to Ukraine. It depends on the parliaments of other countries of our allies, and we will work in that direction too. Another important issue is to do so that the issue of Ukraine's fight with Russian aggression remains on the agenda of all the countries all the time, at all times, so that the phenomena of tiredness would not have emerged. We have to keep this issue as the top issue in the world agenda. We have to keep talking about this. We have to keep reminding about that. We have to keep communicating with our colleagues and maintain them in the shape, so to say, in tone. So those are the key issues. Okay, talking about the countries, what will be the countries that will pose the most challenge for us in terms of development of partnership relations? We understand that we have good relations with some countries. We have a powerful cooperation with them, but talking about those with whom we don't have such relations so far, what will be these countries in 2023? Well, that's true. There are countries, I call them the big six, those countries who are our closest friends, our closest allies, our closest partners that we don't have to convince. It's the United States, Great Britain, the Baltic countries, Poland. We can always count on them. But we have to reinforce the support on part of other countries, I think that we have to focus first of all on such countries which can really provide more support, which are the economic leaders of Europe. I mean, Germany and France. We have to reinforce our cooperation with them, and we have to convince them to provide the most military support possible, and in particular the tanks. And we have to insist that such support is being provided in a timely manner, because the next few months can be critically important for our defense capabilities. Among other countries, you know, we have to work with other European countries as well. Netherlands are a very perspective country for us in terms of creating this special international tribunal for war crimes, for aggression crimes. They are very careful, but they already expressed their intention for creation of such tribunal in their country, and we have to insist for this tribunal to be created this year. Among other countries, we have to work with the countries in other regions. For example, with African countries, there are many countries which vote in the United Nations to support our territorial integrity and sovereignty. So we have to develop our relations with those countries, such big African heavyweights. But we also have to work with those who still don't support us diplomatically in the United Nations organizations. Latin America, I would pay most attention to Brazil. It's a big country, and we have to expand our cooperation with them. There is an old new president, so to say, but it gives us opportunity to start from scratch. I mean, our relation, and we have to convince him to support Ukraine and not Russia in that conflict. So we have to expand the circle of countries of our potential allies, potential partners, to reinforce the anti-Russian coalition in the world. Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. I can't help but asking you about the resolution you announced recently to nominate for the president of the Parliamentary Assembly of European Council. What will be the main points of your program? That was a difficult resolution for me, but I think that we have to fight until the end, and I'm going with my program. Is the program which is aimed at certain principles and certain values. I want to implement that program. Among main points, among main items of this program, I call it the expansion of democracy within PESI. The system existing now, and which is related to something which is incomprehensible to me, the agreement on rotation. I think it's unacceptable from the point of view of democracy. I think that the voting in such a democratic institution as PESI should be an exemplary democracy. They should be competitive. I want to reinforce this democratic process within PESI, and the main important issue is the full exclusion of any Russian or pro-Russian forces, narratives, influences from the Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe and Council of Europe in general. We know that we were able to exclude the aggressor state from PESI, but it's not enough. There are certain influences remaining, and we have to show resolution and to clean PESI from these Russian and pro-Russian influences at all, because the history may repeat itself, unfortunately, because some influences are still remaining there. And the last aspect I would like to pay attention to in my program, I think that PESI should also take care of the issues of expansion of the sphere of protection of human rights. For example, if there is a crime against human rights, such as genocide, is committed in the territory of the country other than the country of the European Union, but if it has consequences in European Union, we have to react to this. We have to fight the violations of human rights with the help of the mechanism of the European mechanisms available to us, and we may show an example of the systematic violation of human rights in Iran, for example. So these are the key 3 items of my program. Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. Dear colleagues, if you have any questions, please introduce yourself. Ukrinform, Natalia Movchanova, you already touched a little bit on the plans for 2023. Maybe you could say a couple of words about how the work will be built in terms of recognition by the foreign parliaments of Holodomor as a genocide and today's war as a genocide, how the world politicians perceive these calls from Ukraine as to recognition of Holodomor as a genocide. First of all, I want to remind you that resolution was going through our committee, first of all, and last year the Parliament adopted 2 resolutions. First, maintains the call to all the parliaments of the world to recognize the Holodomor as a genocide of Ukrainian people. Another resolution contains the calls to recognize the crimes committed by Russia today as a genocide of Ukrainian people. So I think that those 2 resolutions, the recognition of Holodomor and recognition of the crimes which are being committed now, they are very important and they are interrelated because they are the 2 parts of the single policy of genocide that Russia traditionally, historically implemented against Ukraine and Ukrainian people. And we can clearly see this right now. Last year, every time when we were meeting online with our colleagues, with the heads of the committees on foreign affairs, our committee had joint meetings with the Interparliamentary Committee, with the parliamentary committees of other countries. We always touched that issue. We asked our colleagues to adopt the relevant resolutions in their parliaments. Well, the reaction was different, you know. Someone responded and adopted such a resolution. And I want to emphasize that the circle of these countries keeps expanding. I want to remind you that Germany adopted relevant resolution on recognition of genocide of Ukrainian people. And it's a breaking point. It becomes a precedent for other countries. It becomes an example for other countries. And we will appeal to this example and we will continue insisting that the most parliaments possible adopt a resolution like that. Our delegations which visit other parliaments in other countries, interparliamentary assemblies, we will continue to put this issue on vote in our friendship teams. They play an important role when they have joint meetings, when they meet their colleagues from other parliaments. They always touch this issue. Thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. Any more questions, dear friends? Well, we have no more questions in the studio. Mr. Oleksandr, we appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. Our translation, dear colleagues, I'm reminding you, joining us was Oleksandr Merezhko, the head of Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Policy and Interparliamentary Cooperation. Our next briefing is at 1400. Joining us will be Mykola Povoroznik, first deputy head of Kyiv City State Administration. And we will be talking about the situation in the capital, so bear with us. Glory to Ukraine.